Hi guys, Darth Deuce here, back on the Star Wars The Black Series action figure review. Today taking a look at a pretty new release. It is the, I think for a lot of people, highly anticipated Grand Admiral Thrawn as he appeared in the Ahsoka Disney Plus series. And then when this figure was initially announced and whatnot, I was very much looking forward to this figure. And I'm still really happy it finally came out and I was able to get it. But I actually ended up getting the Hot Toys 6 scale Grand Admiral Thrawn from Ahsoka. And, you know, a Black Series is just never going to compare to a Hot Toys 6 scale. So that kind of deadened my excitement for this release a bit. But it's still really cool. I'm still really happy to have it. And we're going to take a closer look. So this is Thrawn's official live action appearance, or based on his live action appearance so far from the Ahsoka series. And I think they actually did a really good job with this figure. As far as I can tell, I think the entire figure, head to toe, is 100% new sculpt. The arms might be reused from the old officer mold, but I actually think they're different because I think they have a bit more deeper of a bend, and there's just some subtle sculpt differences I think I can see that are different. So I think this figure is a whole new sculpt 100%, but I could be wrong. But looking at the head sculpt, I think they did a really good job. I think the sculpt and then the face print being as clean as it is, I think captures the likeness of Lars Mikkelsen as he appeared in the show pretty well. I like the tone of blue for the most part. The red looks pretty good for the eyes. It's hard to see, but the pupils are printed on there. The eyebrows look clean, the lips look good. The hair, it is like a really it's a black with I think a bit of blue mixed into it. And I'm pretty sure in the show his hair was jet black. And if I'm going off of the Hot Toys figure, which usually I think is the standard for accuracy to the source material, that figure's head sculpt, the hair is jet black as well. So I kind of maybe would have liked to have seen a darker tone for the hair. It's not a big deal. And at distance, you won't really notice that much. But yeah, that is something that I think is maybe a little inaccurate. First figure looks pretty good. This paint does get a bit messy where the neck meets the collar. Because I think the collar piece is actually molded in the blue and then they painted the white on. And it just does look a little messy around the collar. It's a little unfortunate. Also, I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but the little like triangle things that are on the collar also don't align symmetrically or properly, which bugs me a little bit. Like I said, maybe that's accurate, but it's a bit weird. But he has the gold epaulette shoulder pad thingies, which look pretty good. The code cylinders in his pockets there are actually painted and sculpted really nicely. If anything was going to be messy, I would have figured it would have been that. The rank plaque looks pretty good. I do wish maybe the actual gray bit looked a bit more metallic looking, but it still looks good. And one design liberty that Hasbro has taken, and every figure or company that's done a figure of this version of Thrawn is in the show. Thrawn does have a little bit of a gut, you know. I get it. Lars Mikkelsen isn't a young guy, and they probably didn't want to force him to lose maybe a significant amount of weight for the role that's mainly just standing around. And in some angles, you don't really notice it. It's mostly when they do side profiles you can really notice it. Well, for the figure and for the Hot Toys figure and for the upcoming TVC figure, they have not kind of gone that way for one of the things that they just aren't doing for accuracy. He doesn't kind of quite have the gut that he had in the show. I do actually prefer this because then that makes this Thrawn, you can use it for, you know, whatever you want. It can be a more generalist kind of Thrawn. It doesn't have to be specific to Ahsoka on your shelf if you don't want it to be. And my kind of headcanon is that the way the figures look or how the Thrawn character is really supposed to look in universe, but they just didn't make the actor take off the weight, which I don't really blame them for. It's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're older. But yeah, it looks pretty good. One other thing, I guess, talking about accuracy, is that this Thrawn really doesn't have... It's subtle in the show because the first time I watched it, I completely missed it. But his outfit, his uniform does actually have some subtle weathering and damage to it in the show. The Hot Toys applies it pretty nicely. And this figure doesn't really have any sort of sculpted detail for damage or any sort of painted weathering. Again, like I said, I don't mind that because if it had that weathering, it's kind of specific to the Ahsoka show. But when you make them cleaner like this, you can use them for whatever you want. You can use them for your Imperial shelf, your Rebel shelf, whatever you want to do. It can be a more general sort of Thrawn, general use Grand Admiral Thrawn, if you will. So I do like that kind of design choice, I guess. But the belt looks nice for the most part with the buckle. The holster there is actually all one sculpt with the lower tunic, which I don't love because that means it's not a separate piece. So they had to paint it. They sculpted it in white and then they had to paint it black. And the paint, when you look closely, it is not the cleanest. Again, it's not terrible at a distance, but I feel like it is kind of noticeable, especially at the front there. I don't love that. It's not the worst thing ever. Then you get the hands. The right hand is sculpted in a trigger gripping hand. And then what I like is that they actually made the left hand just kind of a more relaxed open hand. With the character and the accessories that he comes with, it really makes no real sense for him to have two cupped gripping hands, and it doesn't look super good. So with the open hand, he definitely looks a lot more natural in a lot of the poses that you'll probably do with this character, which I really like. The legs are also new sculpts. I haven't seen these used anywhere else. The detail or the sculpting to make it look like a baggy fabric is pretty effective. And the boots look pretty nice as well with that sculpted leathery sort of detail. But overall, I think he looks really good. I like the choices they made for the design of this figure, and I think he looks pretty great. In terms of articulation, you do have a dumbbell joint at the base of the head as well as at the base of the neck, so he doesn't actually look down a whole lot. You look up a bit, you get a little bit of pivot, and you do get rotation there. So decent range of motion. Single hinges at the shoulders go about 90. They do rotate. They do like to kick out a bit because of the way the tunic is sculpted. Single hinges at the elbows, they do bend past 90. The one on the left actually I think bends in a little further, and then they rotate. And I do believe this is better than the old officer mold. I think they'd only go about 90, so this does have a bit more clearance. Then swivels at both wrists. Then the trigger hand has an up and down hinge, and this open hand has an in and out. There is a torso dumbbell joint, so you can go back a decent amount. Doesn't really crunch forward that much. And one thing you can actually do with articulation, if you did kind of want to simulate Thrawn's kind of gut in the show, you can actually kind of arch the back forward and like have him look down a bit. You can kind of fake it a bit if you want him to look a little more like he did in the show. It's up to you. I'm not going to display him like this, but yeah, you still kind of get that look if it's something you want, if accuracy bothers you, but you can rotate it there as well. The joints at the hips, you can move them about that far forward, and there is cuts on the sides. They split out pretty far. This material is fairly pliable, but like you can see, it does definitely hinder some articulation. Doesn't have a thigh cut. It does have that newer style hip joint, so you do get some shifting, but there's not a full thigh cut. You get swivels at the knees as well as about a 90-degree bend. There is actually a swivel cut at the boot, interestingly enough. And then you do have hinges at the ankles that go down a fair bit, go up an okay amount, and you do have rocker for pivot. So I think he's got pretty good articulation. I'm not going to have Thrawn in all kinds of crazy poses, so the articulation that he has, I think, is, for the most part, pretty serviceable. The only thing I'd complain about is I'd still like to see a bit more of a deeper elbow bend, so he can get his hands closer to his head, his face. But aside from that, I think he's pretty good articulated. In terms of accessories, he only comes with one accessory, which is a bit unfortunate. He does come with his pistol. This is a new sculpt, and it's a little hard to tell, but there's a little bit of silver paint there, which is nice little detailing. But this is accurate to the pistol that he has in the show, even though I don't think he ever uses it. It's always holstered. He never takes it out, but he does have it. You can hold it really well in the gripping hand. It looks pretty good. And you can slot it into the holster, and it slots in pretty securely. It's not just going to fall out, and it looks pretty good. So that's nice. But it doesn't come with any other accessories. I think they definitely could have included the little data pad thing that he uses when he's looking at like Ahsoka's history and whatnot. That Morgan Elsbeth finds for him. I think he could have came with that no problem, and then I think I would have been pretty happy with that. But him only coming with the pistol is a little questionable at best, I won't lie. There is another version of this figure you can get or another release that you can get. This is the single release, but later on this year, some people might have already gotten their hands on it. There's a Masters of Evil 3-pack that has Darth Vader, the Tartakovsky colored General Grievous, and then this Thrawn. And that version of Thrawn actually also comes with the Salamir alien that goes, creature that goes around his neck. Like, I think it's the same accessory that came with the that Heirs of the Empire Luke. I mean, I can show you. I have it on the old animated Thrawn. It comes with this. So that's another option for getting Thrawn. I'm not going to get that 3-pack because I don't need the Darth Vader and the Grievous, and I think I would only recommend that pack if you need all 3 characters. But that is kind of cool that they include that with that version. But I get not including it with this version because you didn't have that in the show. But I guess lastly, we can do some comparisons. So I guess I kind of already showed it, but here is our previous Black Series Thrawn. That was a realistic interpretation of the Rebels Thrawn. And you can see how they look. And I still like the Rebels Thrawn. It looks cool, but it definitely shows its age a bit with the proportions a little bit, the articulation. I definitely much prefer the colors, the skin tone colors of the new one than this one. I mean, you never really realized how much of a light blue that this old Thrawn was until you get this guy in hand. Again, I do think like this one's still a pretty good figure, and I'm using him as like my Legends like Thrawn, I guess, with the Salamir there. But I definitely think overall as a figure that the new one is definitely better, which I guess it should be. There's like what 6-7 years difference there between releases at this point. Then I guess keeping it in with the officers, here he is with a figure that uses the old officer mold. This is obviously Grand Moff Tarkin. I think these two look really good together. And I like that Thrawn's a bit taller. Then here he is with Morgan Elsbeth. And he's significantly taller than her, but she's a shorter character. But they look good together. And then lastly, a couple other pretty recent releases. Here he is with Captain Enoch and one of his night troopers. And these guys look really great flanking Thrawn. So overall, I think this is a really good release. I'd say it's the best Black Series 6-inch Thrawn you can get, figure-wise anyways. Like, just single figure, not counting accessories, because that exclusive Thrawn with all those extra accessories is really cool. But I think just as a figure, I think this Thrawn is the way to go. If you're looking for a 6-inch scale Thrawn figure, I think this is the one to get. No matter if you're a Rebels fan, show fan, or just want a Thrawn figure, I would highly recommend picking this one up if that's something you're interested in. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next video. May the Force be with you.